Lamentation ladies and mourner menses. Let rust your bloodied bayonets. Turn your swords into plowshares. And if we cancel the war, what will I do with all my military erotica?
Nothing but jackboots. It's time to talk Tull to me.
That's a great replacement for meat. You know, you can do it in McCurry. Jackboots.
Jackboots? Yeah. Oh, I get it, jackfruit. Yeah.
You get it. Welcome back to the podcast. I am Omen Thomasade.
And I am Nick McGill.
Together we are Feckless Momes.
And this, my G.I. Joes, is Talk Tull to me.
A bellicose blunder across the bloodied fields of Pibroch, in which Not on My Watch Nick and Operational Error Omen will drape a flag over and salute each and every track that reconnaissance rock band Jethro Tull have ever commanded into a shoot and scoot maneuver. We will learn the secrets of Greek fire from a garrison of David's Goodyear, hand polish John O'Hara's handsome howitzer, and employ the Fabian strategy with Florian full frontal assault of Halle. And if we can finally reach the extraction point, verify our security clearance, and take a quick fireworks and smoke break in the magazine room, we might just posthumously get pinned with a Medal of Honor by the Sea Fort of Skye, the penman of the parapet, the maritime security madman, a man for whom aerial ramming is both a science and a pleasure, Ian, my favorite type of bush, is an ambush, Anderson.
Is a place where they store ammunition called a battery?
Oh, I'm not sure. I thought a battery was something else. The magazine is where you store your ammunition.
That's what it's called, is the magazine?
Yeah.
Battery in military terms has always confused me.
It's what you put into the troops to make them go.
That's it.
I've lost me batteries. War's over. Should have used Duracell.
Boom, boom, boom.
Duracell.
They weren't solar back then.
They weren't. No. Nick.
Omen.
What brings us together on this fine, crisp and or muggy afternoon?
It's very crisp up here. We are going to talk some Tull, I think.
Why not?
I think that is what we are going to do. Before we get into the song proper.
Yeah. Which is?
Oh, this week it will be Wootton Bassett Town.
Wootton Bassett Town.
We are going to talk a little correspondence from folks based on the episode that dropped just today.
Which was
Swing It Far.
Yes.
Which is the first of our stints into Gerald
as a homeless man.
The homeless man.
Yes.
And kind of the origin story of what may have caused that.
Yes.
To hop into the Discord, good old St. Jupson writes in, as always, informative and well-written.
Hey, Jupson.
Jupson says, R.E. Mr. Jennings, good house master. That's the thing, right? When you're non-standard and you meet someone else who is non-standard in the same way, who maybe you already look up to a lot, feelings can be hard to reason with. And if Mr. Jennings is perhaps lacking certain self-control and Gerald's sexuality is already awakening within him at that age, well, I see why Gerald would fall to pieces, losing both a lover of sorts, a mentor, etc., but also seeing someone non-standard in the same way as he is, being chased away from being that way. Gerald probably doesn't see the situation as problematic or molestation from his own perspective. It is an old cliche, but I think it's not an uncommon archetype.
Yeah, well said. Particularly about the feeling that, all my life I've been alone in who I am, and now there's someone else who I can have a sense of community with.
Right.
Or recognition.
Yeah, someone who is helping me to realize what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
There are good, healthy situations like that, and then there are less good, less healthy situations.
Less legal.
Yeah. So thank you, Jupson, as always. Greatly appreciate your writing in. We don't have a Jupson sting.
Insanely word and perfect grammar.
There it is. Found it.
Jupson's sting going forward. our second piece of correspondence. Guess who it's from?
Oh, I can't. Vicar John.
No, Folky Phil.
Folky Phil. Should have guessed.
We do love you, Vicar John. But this is from Folky Phil, whom we also love. Ruminations and curiosities is the subject of this email. Hi, Momes. A cool and entertaining pod today, as always. Thank you.
Thank you.
Some thoughts and points of interest. Isn't getting the lead out and swing it far a masterful, multi-layered, and mysterious lyric? To get the lead out means to hurry up. To swing the lead has two almost opposing meanings. To fake illness to get out of work.
Oh.
And from a nautical background, to work hard to plot a course. A heavy lead weight on a rope was swung ahead of a boat or ship in order to gauge the depth of the water, hence plumb the depths. With plumbum being Latin for lead, and that's actually where the
Plumber.
lead pipes. Yeah, maybe plumber.
Yeah, I'm
plumbing the depths, but it's also
the plumb bob.
it's also the periodic element for the initials for lead is PB.
Yes, not
Plumbum.
peanut butter,
Not peanut butter.
as I once thought.
Don't put lead in peanut butter.
No, gross.
No. So, get the lead out and swing it far could mean hurry up and get out of here, or work hard to chart a safe course for the future.
Wow,
Or both,
wow,
or neither.
that's very cool.
Yeah. A couple of interesting factlets. In a YouTube comment, I saw a curious ruminant nicknamed as Nosy Cow, which is pretty clever and a lot of fun.
That's funny.
Also, the February 2025 edition of Prague Magazine includes a brief interview with IA about the new album. It may just have come from the press release, ? He insists that it is not a concept album, yeah, right, but adds that he has deliberately written lyrics that are more personal and heart on sleeve than his usual objective and painterly style.
Okay.
Subjects include the need for cooperation, Tipu House, maybe, and mutual support by everyone,
Yeah.
and how the actions of one affects all, drink from the same well, the state of the Middle East, over Jerusalem, and thoughts about a possible afterlife, interim sleep. So just the typical Tull la 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 love songs.
LOL. That's a humor.
That's a humor joke.
Yeah.
I believe humans call it.
Yeah. Yes.
Also, the same magazine has extensive interviews with Stephen I'm Bloody Everywhere Right Now Wilson, and with Omen's favorite, Matt Berry.
Oh, really?
Also my favorite, Phil.
Yeah,
Come on now, please. We both equally love Matt Berry.
And I love both of you equally. Thank you, Matt Berry.
Thank you, Matt Berry, for stepping in. Cheerio, Folky Phil.
He's mine now. Matt
Berry will never
escape me clutches.
Mary's gotten her hooks into poor Matt Berry.
And I'm loving it. That's great. Thank you, Folky Phil, for the lead on the Prague magazine. We should definitely check that out.
Yeah.
And yeah, what a fabulous little trip down linguistic lane.
Linguini Lane.
Linguini Lane, delicious. On lead, and it's in all of its possible meanings. Lead was one of the earliest elements and metals to be used by people. So I think it worked its way into our imagination and our lexicon very early on.
Interesting, yeah. It's a soft, malleable,
Heavy,
toxic.
delicious.
So good, though.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, but plumber, the word plumber does come from lead because it is a plombier, a leader, someone who works with lead.
Oh, interesting.
Because pipes used to be made of lead, which was super good for everyone's health.
Drinking water, that's why it tastes sweet.
That's why it tastes so sweet.
All right, I think that's enough silliness. Let's get down to business.
Wootton Bassett Town,
Wootton Bassett Town.
the companion piece to Old School Song in the Gerald and Military Man duo. Why don't we have a listen? Nick McGill.
Oh, Roman Thomasade.
Let's remind ourselves at what year this album was released.
This was 2012. Just as I suspected.
Just as I suspected. So I think it would be worthwhile reading the blurb that accompanies a wonderful Ian Anderson black and white photograph, which is in silent singing, to contextualize this song.
Yeah, normally I would say let's save it for the lyrics, but I think sonically it requires some context to really, really appreciate it as well.
So we have this beautiful black and white photograph taken on Main Street, Wootton Bassett. Almost make out the something tea rooms, and there's some parked cars, and it says empty street. So attached to it is the blurb, Wootton Bassett Town. An empty Wootton Bassett town in early evening during COVID lockdown 2020. The site of repatriation to the UK of the fallen in Afghanistan and Iraq. I attended one of the last repatriations when 3 British soldiers were returned in coffins via nearby RAF Lynham. The main street was packed with respectfully silent souls reflecting on the futility of war and the sad loss of all victims of battle. Bikers, other serving soldiers, police officers, local dignitaries, and His Royal Majesty the Prince of Wales were all there to mark their return to bereaved families. To have photographed that moment would have seemed disrespectful, so I kept my camera in my pocket after all.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up from Folky Phil as well, really quick. Wootton Bassett Town references the RAF airfield where the bodies of dead service personnel were repatriated during the Iraq and Afghanistan conflicts of the beginning of this century, and where people would line the main street in a silent show of respect and support as the funeral processions passed through. The town was granted royal patronage, renamed Royal Wootton Bassett, in recognition of its role in the repatriations.
Yeah. As we were talking about, I think last episode, after 9/11, there was that very memorable, to my mind, speech by the American president at the time, George W. Bush, who said, basically, we're going in to Afghanistan to kick butt and take names and seek revenge. And if you're not with us, you're against us.
Yeah.
So a number of international forces did join the war effort, including the UK.
The NATO nations, I imagine.
Yes, not all of the NATO nations, if I recall, but part of it was called Operation Henrik. And British operations in the war in Afghanistan were conducted from 2002 to the end of combat operations in 2014. Presumably, somewhere during that period was when Ian witnessed this. And I did see a number. There were a total number of casualties on the British military side of 454.
Wow.
Yep. So, what do we hear musically?
Well, we start out with some super synthy strings.
Yes.
Loving it. John O'Hara on the Hammond organ.
Almost a drone.
Yeah, they're very steady in there. Yeah.
In that intro, it actually reminded me of Pibroch.
Yeah, which is a mournful lament anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We quickly move away from that feeling.
Yeah, we get some stingy licks.
But not before we have those glockenspiel chimes.
A couple quick little dings on the Glock, some stingy guitar. The shaker comes in very, very adamantly.
I lie in sweat, cry others' tears.
The shaker has a very interesting role in this song.
Yeah. The main lead line of this song is the shaker, I think.
I imagine Ian was like, I want to play the tambourine, but that would be disrespectful. Bring me the shaker! It is sufficiently demure.
Take all the bangles off of a tambourine. I shall beat it that way.
I shall shake the silent tambourine.
It's the acoustic tambourine.
That's so stupid. Florian comes in with that wonderful, the riff that keeps with us through most of the song.
Yeah.
Ian joins him in a harmony on the flute.
Mm-hmm. The drums don't kick in until about 1:30, I think, roughly around there. We don't hear drums until then.
Long road back that then person hordes. Where will we stop to sheath our swords?
There's a lot of ramping up. We start out very sad, very kind of statement of fact, very just direct, I feel, musically.
Yeah.
But it progresses and progresses and progresses and
Yes.
goes over into, it tips over that apex into the field of angry.
Yes, it does. Yes, it really does.
Yeah.
I think around the 105 mark, I thought I heard, it may have been the bass, not the drums, but I heard something coming in on that lower line.
Oh, interesting. Maybe, yeah.
But it's so subtle. It's like barely even there. And then you're right. When we hit Long Road to Baghdad, that's when it opens up with the full drum kit. The strings really explode at that point.
Yeah.
And I have to admit, it gave me chills.
Yes. Imagine seeing this with a quartet, with the string quartet.
Oh my
too.
gosh.
Oof. I'd be weeping.
I would have to bring a box of tissues and also a handkerchief for my tears.
Because you would hand out the tissues because other people would be crying.
That's why.
That's why.
No other reason.
That's why. At about 2, just after 2, we get into that, maybe a bridge, maybe like a little solo bit, but it's the da-na-na, da-na-na, da-na-na-na-na-na.
Is that a riff from something that we've heard before? Is that a riff from potentially Thick as a Brick 1?
Maybe. I know that there are bits of when he sings, it's the same tune as Banker Bets, Banker Wins.
I lie in sweat, cry others' tears. Banker bets and banker wins.
Yes, that's true. You're right. I had forgotten that. I had clocked that some days ago, but forgot it.
I'm wondering if it's that same sound from there. I'm not sure, but it does sound very familiar. It's a very strong phrase, very strong sonic phrase.
Yes, it feels familiar to me. Right around that, I think leading into that, we have Ian on the flute taking over the main melody line of that riff, with Florian coming in and doing the harmonies. They kind of switch their established roles in the song, which is fun.
It's very, very smooth. It's a nice transition. And it works well. It works well. It didn't need to happen, but I enjoy that it did.
Yes, yeah, exactly. It's like when you order something in a restaurant and you're like, oh, I didn't know it came with couscous.
Couscous? What an added bonus.
Oh, fun. Is that a slivered almond? Is it my frickin' birthday?
Oh, please, I couldn't.
A pecan? couldn't. At around 2:30, maybe 2:28, Florian lets out this incredible wail. We've talked about the keening, the wailing, the traditional wailing mourning form of Scottish ladies up in the Highlands.
Yep.
It is reminiscent to me of that. I mean, it's reminiscent of any mother who's lost their child.
Yeah.
It's primal.
Yeah, there's something very, very basic about it. Yeah, primal's very good. There's an elemental feeling of just, you can't put it to words.
Yeah.
You just have to express your grief. And the musicians are doing a very good job at embodying that.
Yes. I think that's a famous quote. Somebody said, music is the poetry for when words fail or something.
Ooh, that sounds nice.
I'm butchering that, but that's the concept.
Yeah.
A fascinating use of the shortening of the word never to ne'er.
Oh, I missed that.
We can talk obviously more about the lyrics, but eyes facing downward, ne'er look back. Very, very, very old fashioned.
Yeah.
Somebody must have been reading Keats.
He just needed it to scan.
He needed this to scan. Which, I appreciate the flexibility of English.
He could have said never very quickly and fit it in.
Eyes fixing forward, never look back. Ne'er look back. I think that ne'er puts more emphasis on the look back, which is good.
Yes. Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. The ne'er is incidental, but still poignant and potent, truncating it like that.
French is like water in the sense that you can't compress it. It's illegal to do so. English is like air, where you can compress it. And then when you pop the cork on it, it goes and gets all over your ceiling.
Yeah. Katie, did he take his meds today?
In that same line, or a little bit further on in that line, on the line stiffly stand, chance shoppers, tradesmen stiffly stand. Ian goes up with his voice. He breaks the pattern of the melody. Chance shoppers, tradesmen, instead of going stiffly stand, he goes stiffly stand, which is a gorgeous little ornamentation and surprising to hear him jump up that high, but he nails it.
There's clearly like a passion in this song, understandably so.
And when we hit the phrase military man, it's isolated. All the other instruments drop out. And we just have his voice saying military man.
Tears for the military man.
And then we come back in with Florian.
Yeah.
We end the track with a long, drawn-out wail of feedback on the electric guitar, which feels very appropriate and pretty heartbreaking.
The emotion in this song is very palpable between the kind of the sad acceptance, and then the more you dwell on it, the more you ruminate on it, the more pissed off you get, understandably so.
Yeah. It's that mixture of grief and anger where you can't necessarily tell the difference anymore.
Yeah, right.
So before we go into the half and we end up talking about the lyrics, I just want to observe how brilliant this pairing is constructually.
Oh, the two military, Gerald as a military boy?
Yes.
Okay, so old school song was the boys at prep school, basically.
Saying, hey, fellas, let's all sign up for the military. Grand adventure. What a fun time we'll have.
Yeah, we'll be heroes.
And then we cut immediately to the coffins in the street.
Yeah.
I think that is such an incredible choice. We don't see the war at all. So there's no glorification of the battle.
Yeah, right. It's commentary on both sides of that battle. And the battle is secondary.
Yeah.
We're raising our kids to want to be like this, and this is what happens.
I just want to remind myself what old school song sounds like.
Sure.
Right. It's all upbeat. There's an aggression to it. There's a darkness to it, but it's all,
But there's a fervor. There's an excitement to it.
Yeah. And then that changes into that, do. I think it's in the same key. So, I mean, they do really work together as companion pieces.
Yeah. It's quite tragic.
That Ian Anderson.
He knows what he's doing.
He knows what he's doing.
Omen, as promised, we are going to discuss the www.stcleve.com e-newsletter.
Yes, we are. As with the original Thick as a Brick publication that came with the record, this is a vast and myriad bunch of stuff.
Yes, it is.
It has the same kind of rollicking silliness that the original did.
Yeah.
But it is updated for digital times.
And it is not a live site, by the way. You have to go to Wayback Machine and put in www.stcleve.com and it'll pull it up. And all of the links on the top are live. They will send, well, they're stuffed. They're taxidermied.
They're taxidermied, yes.
They will lead you to the right page.
The thing that I find really fascinating about this is that it reminds me of, did you ever listen to that podcast, Night Vale?
I never got into it.
It's about a fictional town. It's a news broadcast, and none of it really makes any sense. It's all this kind of vague, threatening, mysterious.
Kind of like cryptid, mystery, paranormal.
But the thing that they do really well is that they have all these different storylines, but they're all tied together in little ways.
Yeah. And
this site does an amazing job of, on the face of it, it's like, oh, it's just all these random silly stories. And then you're like, oh, wait a minute, but this personal ad is a reference to this person. And, and if I read that, then I can see that this article actually didn't tell the whole truth. It's a whole maze of these interconnected stories, which is really silly and fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun to read. It really was.
I don't think we would possibly have time to go through every single article, but I do want to pull out a couple of fun highlights.
Yeah, likewise. Let's start on the homepage.
Okay, so the cover story is Whatever Happened to Gerald Bostock? It casts him as a disgraced prime minister's aide who was caught off duty with a colorful contortionist of Latvian descent.
This is our iteration of seeing him as the former MP.
Yes.
But I'm glad you read that far. We all know Raven's Latvian.
Uh-huh.
But we have a thing in this house where it's so frustrating because Latvia is the go-to country for like silly joke.
Uh-huh.
They have it in Brooklyn Nine-Nine as well. We've heard it so many times.
Yeah. It's the Wales of Europe.
Yes. Yeah.
One of my favorite things about this is all of the, not even just the place names, but the business names that get mentioned.
And the regular names,
yes.
The people's names.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this information comes from someone who has overheard something down at the Cinnamon Club, a Westminster Indian restaurant popular with both politicians and the press. And then we kind of are on our way, and we have a whole bunch of other stories. One about a massive meat pie.
Mm-hmm. At the very top, we have an ad for aging rock star to play warm-up gig at St. Cleve Community Center.
Yes.
It's Ian on leg. And at the very bottom of that, it says, all proceeds to go to the Old Persons Activity, Health and Leisure Evening Fund, which is an acronym of OPALE.
Yes, it's really fun.
Yeah.
Down a little bit further at the bottom of the page, we have James Duncan arrested in protest scuffle.
Love it.
We had mentioned that earlier. Local sculptor James Duncan and his younger sister Gail, both arrested in London late Thursday for protesting violently in support of the Small Cat Conservation Alliance. One of my favorite lines is, allegedly, buttocks were bared and loud meows were used to taunt police.
At the very bottom of the page, the fine print, which can be seen on all of the pages, but it's kind of the copyright. It says, the content of St. Cleve's copyright is protected under the copyright controls of the United Kingdom, enforced by WebSecure, blah, blah, blah. Unauthorized users of text and images will be prosecuted really quite seriously without delay or remorse. Extradition, a distinct possibility. No non-rabbits were injured in site production.
Right. Going back to the rabbit theme that we had in the original, in the original publication, the original newspaper.
I think non-rabbit was something in the original paper as well. Yeah.
Again, lots of fun stuff in here. There's a very highbrow juvenile humor which pervades the entire publication.
It must have been Ian who wrote it then, if
Yes,
that's the case.
I would imagine. One of my favorite articles is about the Bavarian wasp spider.
Yes.
That is invading England, and it recommends that the best way to deter the wasp spider is by placing a hot chili, preferably the Boot Jolokia, in your underwear.
Yes.
But it also recommends make sure to take off the underwear before doing that, as a wasp spider in the nethers is infinitely preferable to a Boot Jolokia up the whoopsie.
In the local news, at the very bottom, we have Madam Seductress Hermione Parrott Jones. Remember?
Oh!
Eat Hermione for lunch? Yeah.
Yes! Oh, that's really funny. I didn't make that connection. It looks to me like they're using an old picture of Britney Spears on vacation. But Hermione Parrott Jones is supposed to be 19.
Yes.
And is a schoolgirl in a variety fashion shoots. If we go to the sports, the fun thing at the bottom is a picture of Ian Anderson holding up a Scotch bonnet, which he looks very proud of. Perhaps he's grown it. And I love this. It says, while not officially classified as a sport as of yet, hot chili eating is fast becoming a local and even national pastime. Given the number of injuries and the competitive nature of the gladiatorial battles between macho men and pain-impervious female combatants, it is expected to be given official Olympic Games status in 2024.
Did not see it.
Didn't see it. They went with breakdancing instead, and they regret their choices.
As they ought to.
As they ought to.
Yeah. Next up, tab of the Family Matters. The very top story, Smother Them with Love, was really funny to me. Teach your children to respect adults and animals in a nurturing family environment. Joyce Vulture offers consultations in your home with time to reflect and work through the day's problems afterwards. Live pygmy deep fluff rabbits are presented to the child, and mild electrotherapy introduced gradually as a behavior moderator as required.
It doesn't say whether that's applied to the human children or to the rabbits.
Right, exactly.
Further down, there is a picture of Ian Anderson in an astronaut outfit.
As to be expected.
As to be expected.
Stepping over to Community, very interesting. Open nights at the Art and Soul Studio. It's about someone posing nude for like a drawing class. And then they mention that Easy Peel Labor Mask tape was on hand for the ladies. Oh. Well, not on hand, more down there, but you know what we mean.
That's amazing.
That's very Ian to me.
Where it gets really interesting to me is in these small ads.
Yes.
Again, these are all tied into other things. We have what is probably the third reference to the Dirty Duck Pub, a gastropub with attitude.
Which the Dirty Duck is the connect the dots in the original.
That's right. That's right.
A couple down, we have Una Midnight, the Latvian folk dancing tuition and personal services.
More slagging off of the Latvians.
But I'm assuming it's the same one. We didn't have a name, I don't think, in the cover story of Gerald being with a Latvian dancer. So I'm assuming this is the same dancer.
Yes, could well be. Yes,
that tie-in. Yeah.
Well, and we get Una Karpark again later down in personal massage and meditation.
Oh yes, yeah, exactly.
Qualified practitioner brings you solace and inner peace. Una Karpark, trained in Goa and Riga, light touch and a firm foot.
Riga being the capital of Latvia.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Trample and deep thrust techniques offered to those with resolve and will. Restraint belts and other tethers available for the submissive. Cuffs, tasers, and razor wire on request. It really takes a turn there.
Yeah. Beneath that, we have De Groot Fitness Club. It's kind of like, oh, why should you exercise, blah, blah, blah. At the very bottom line is anal scrubs and defoliation by appointment.
Yeah. Great stuff. Really, really very silly. Really quite silly stuff.
Quite silly. Finally, let's wrap up with the messages, I think.
The one that stands out to me is, Hermione, where were you?
Yeah, Hermione again.
I waited hours at the Boddingtons. They said you had accepted the invitation. You probably went up to London to see that banker chappie. I don't get it. What has he got that I haven't?
That's it. Banker bets, banker wins.
We found it.
Yeah. We've got David. I think we should organize another waffle party. Don't you agree, Leatherman? Bring your own toppings and then party on into the night. Yours, Justin. Give me another chance. Vroom, vroom. And then Slurpee. Don't go so early next time. Love you 2 bits. Your own fumbles. Mm-hmm.
Can't imagine what that is.
I think we've got an extra deep Easter egg here. Pungent and deeply unpleasant pong coming from the old granary at Linwell. It is permeated across the village, and I'm not the only resident to complain. My chest hurts, my sinuses are acting up, and I have repeated headaches and nausea. Smells like dead bodies in there. If we wanted to live amongst bloody zombies, we would just watch The Walking Dead, wouldn't we?
Wow.
What is the reference of Ian Anderson and The Walking Dead?
Gail's husband was the star.
Andrew Lincoln, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, fun. What fun. So, again, we could spend all episode just diving into this stuff. If you haven't read it, if you haven't taken a stroll through the stcleave.com chronicles, pour yourself a stiff glass of milk.
Milk on the rocks.
Pour yourself a milk stiffener. Pour yourself a nice glass of yogurt and have a read.
That's called kefir.
I live in kefir. Stop living in kefir.
Of curdled dairy. Omen. So we know the context, the general overall context of Wootton Bassett Town.
Sure do.
Let's talk specifics. Let's talk lyrics that Ian has written for this event.
Yep, and sung them.
And he also sang them, yeah.
Hourglass sands run through my veins like blood draining from a salty wound. Coming out with a strong metaphor.
Hourglass sands run through my veins like blood draining from a salty wound.
I mean, the hourglass could represent time running out.
One's lifespan.
Yeah, it's a kind of an old image.
Yeah, right.
Mad Mars forgets the cost of strife.
Mad Mars forgets the cost of strife.
Mars, of course, being
the Roman god of war, the equivalent of Ares.
Yes. Very important god for the Romans because they loved their war.
They liked fighting.
They loved it. Shakespeare has a lot of references to Mars. And now the warlike Harry, like himself, assumes the seat of Mars, I believe, talking about Hotspur going to war.
Speaking of Shakespeare, it has been documented that Queen Elizabeth I never went to see a Shakespeare play in the Globe, but she did go to see bear baiting right down the street several times.
Yeah, well, because she had class.
Yeah, she had her priorities straight.
Yeah. Mad Mars forgets the cost of strife, serves no longer purpose in my life.
Serves no longer purpose in my life.
That's the line that I trip up the most in this song with.
Mad Mars forgets the cost. See, I don't think Mars would care about the cost of strife is the thing.
He always forgets the cost of strife. But is it Mars who no longer serves a purpose in my life?
Yeah, that's a colon, right?
That's a colon.
Yeah, okay.
Serves no longer purpose in my life. Yeah.
Oh, serves purpose in my life no longer.
Right.
Meaning I'm no longer a warhawk.
Right. Yeah, I think we got it.
Yeah, Mars forgetting the cost of strife is interesting, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a funny line. With the commas in there, it makes it a little bit vague, but I feel like the emotional meaning is still clear.
Yeah.
I lie in sweat, cry others' tears, and write a letter to my mum, my wife, my God unheard, unseen, who never thinks to intervene.
I lie in sweat, cry others' tears, and write a letter to my mum, my wife, my God, unheard, unseen, who never thinks to intervene.
Yes, I mean, this is a big philosophical question. If God is on our side, why is he not doing more for us?
It's a theological question.
It is a big, yeah. Did I say philosophical?
Yeah.
It is a theological question that is a good question. If God loves us, why does he cause us so much suffering? Why doesn't he intervene?
To make us doubt and to prove our loyalty.
That seems weird.
He's an abusive boyfriend.
Kind of is. Kind of gaslighting us big time.
Not joking.
Maybe you should just pray a little harder.
Yeah, pray harder. I will forgive you.
Babe.
You can get into heaven.
Babe, remember when you had like a really good day? That was all me.
Babe, that lightning hitting your cat, you didn't pray hard enough.
Yeah, you should have prayed specifically against lightning hitting your cat.
Yeah.
What were you thinking?
Yeah.
Get out of here. Get into war. I love the phrase cry others' tears. That's fascinating. I wonder if that is a reference to having lost comrades in arms.
That's what I think it is, yeah. Yeah, because he's writing letters to people. So I don't take that allegorically, but crying others' tears is he's going to be the first one to mourn the loss of these people because the people back home aren't going to know for how long.
Ooh, yeah, I like that.
Proxy tears.
I don't do my own crying. I outsource that.
Yeah.
I also wonder if there's a sense of being so disconnected from your own emotions that you are crying, but it feels like someone else is crying.
Oh, yeah, sure. Right.
Oh, what pain and oh, what lie has called to us from heaven on high. Oof.
Oh, what pain and oh, what lie has called to us from heaven on high.
So one of the big things with the war in Iraq and Afghanistan was that a lot of what motivated it, or a lot of what was used as the decision to invade, specifically Iraq, by the American forces was, Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction. That was across all the media. It was what Dick Cheney had discovered through satellite imagery, big quotes, unquotes.
Yeah.
And then, turned out that it never was the case.
They didn't have them.
MDAs were never found.
MDA? MDMA?
MDMA was definitely found all over Cheney's bathroom.
WMDs.
WMDs were not found. So to me, that's the obvious lie.
Right, yeah.
But I think there are plenty of other lies that are told to people to convince them to go into war.
Right, exactly. Think back to old school song. You're going to be heroes.
Yes, exactly. Or even these people are the enemy because they have a different God, because they hate freedom, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. This cruel and harsh sweet punishment for follies acted leaves us spent.
This cruel and harsh sweet punishment for follies acted leaves us spent.
There's a lot of quite Shakespearean language in here.
This one is exceptionally poetic.
Yes. That cruel and harsh sweet punishment, that kind of contradiction in terms, the antitheses that he's playing with there, really fun.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the follies acted would be, but maybe that's the folly of the politicians.
I think it's the folly of going to war in general, being a soldier.
Yeah. Long road to Baghdad, then Persian hordes. You have something.
Oh, I had something. Yeah. So I didn't think of it politically until you just brought it up, but I do really like the idea of the politicians having acted the follies, leaving the soldiers spent.
Yes. And that's a theme, throughout lots of protest songs across history.
Yeah.
You never see the person who decided to make the war happen on the front lines. That's sort of a truism.
Yeah.
Long road to Baghdad, then Persian hordes. Where will we stop to sheath our swords?
Long road to Baghdad, then Persian hordes. Where will we stop to sheath our swords?
To me, that's fascinating because Baghdad is a reference to modern day Iraq. Persia is a reference to that area, what it had been called in ancient times.
Yeah.
And so I kind of feel like, we're here fighting this modern war, but what's next? Us fighting all of the crusades that have ever existed?
Right, yeah. It's a snowball effect, but it's also, there's war here now. There was war here generations ago.
Yeah.
There was war here before that. There was war here before that.
Yeah.
On Sheath Our Swords, obviously a militaristic thing, but it's also in the original Thick as a Brick, the poet lifts his pen, the soldier sheaths his sword.
And the poet lifts his pen while the soldier sheaths his sword.
Oh, yes. Very, very nice reference there. Good job, Nick. You get a cookie.
Thank you. Oh, I love it.
Wait to eat it until after we're done.
Balance it on my nose.
That's right. IEDs lie patient sleeping. Oh my God.
IEDs, my patient sleeping.
Improvised explosive device.
So this was the big thing in those wars. The forces which the Brits and Americans were fighting were essentially using guerrilla tactics.
Yeah.
And holed up in cave complexes and doing everything that they could to just make the occupation. And that's not, I don't mean occupation from any kind of a political perspective, but foreign forces were occupying this land.
They were there. Yeah.
To make the occupation as miserable and unpleasant as possible.
A nightmare.
Yes.
A literal nightmare. Yeah.
Yeah. And all the people that I've talked to who served in those conflicts, the thing that they all talk about being the most psychologically devastating were the IEDs.
Living your life, living your entire existence for years, always afraid of something happening, being in that flight mode, that fear mode, having that chemical in your system is so destructive, so damaging.
Anywhere you drive, anywhere you walk, if you go behind a bush to take a whiz, you could be blown up.
Yeah.
And everybody that I've talked to, had, whether or not they were directly impacted, they had a buddy who was blown up.
Right. They saw it if they didn't experience it. Yeah.
So many stories of, okay, we're driving in the Hummer, you know what, let's swap seats to change stuff around. And then you hit an IED and the person in the seat that you had been occupying 5 minutes ago is dead.
Yeah.
Very, very intense, very psychologically damaging.
Yeah. To round out that paragraph, IEDs lie patient sleeping, wake when soldier boots come creeping.
Wake when soldier boots come creeping.
And the really unfortunate thing is that a lot of those devices, like the mines that have been used around the world, they keep active long after the conflict is officially over.
Yeah.
And then you get kids getting blown up. And
right.
some really interesting efforts out in the world to mitigate, to demine areas.
Yeah. Yeah, they're training rats.
Yes.
To identify mines and things.
You can actually sponsor a rat. For the cost of 1 cup of rat coffee a day, you can buy a cup of coffee for a rat who's been up all night sniffing out bombs. Go to buyaratacoffee.com and buy a rat a coffee today.
For the cost of a cold half-eaten slice of pizza, you can support this rat.
And then we go back to Hourglass Sands. We have a repeat of that first line.
Down all the way to Mad Mars not serving a purpose.
Yep. And then we continue with down this dusty, scorched wind blast track, eyes facing forward, ne'er look back.
Down this dusty, scorched wind blast track, eyes facing forward, ne'er look back.
That's sort of interesting to me because it speaks to me on several levels. I think immediately of Orpheus and Eurydice.
Yeah.
You can't look back. But also I feel like there's this sense of like in for a penny, in for a pound.
Yeah, right. There's no reason to regret. You're in it. You can't go back.
Well, and even, the political and military reality of invading a country is that at some point you either have to decide to stay there indefinitely, have a military presence there indefinitely, or at some point you pull out.
Yeah.
When the U.S. pulled out of Afghanistan, a power vacuum occurred, which is partly why ISIS was able to gain such stronghold. I think I have that correct.
I think so. Sounds vaguely right.
The downdraw of American troops resulted in there being a power vacuum.
Yeah, there was no one there to stop it from happening. Yeah.
Every war ever, politicians say, well, we'll be done by Christmas.
Yeah. Right.
And I remember Bush saying that, or one of the military commanders at the time in 2001, 2002 saying that.
Yeah. I think this paragraph, however, is now we're in Wootton Bassett.
Yes.
So now we still have the idea of Mars not serving a purpose down this dusty, scorched wind blast track. Maybe that's the landing, not pad. What's the
runway.
The landing strip, the runway.
Tarmac.
Yeah, where they are accompanying bodies covered in flags, coffins.
I feel like the switch happens a line later.
Oh.
Down the dusty wind-scorched track is the March of War. And then we cut to rain comes down on Wootton Bassett Town. That you have a shift of environment. But it works either way, really.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think there is a sonic shift there, even though it's not broken up in the text.
Yes.
So yeah, you might be right. Yeah.
And then we finish out with a pretty stark and just straightforward description of what Ian saw at that repatriation.
Yeah.
A fancy word for shipping corpses of killed soldiers to their parents.
Right. Repatriating. That patriot is such a buzzword, and it's gross.
Well, and of course, the patros comes from the Latin father, so to send back to the fatherland.
The fatherland, yeah.
Yeah, it's always fascinating when politicians, the military, create these very fancy terms to cover up the really brutal realities.
Their shit, yeah.
Yeah. A fun one. A fun little ditty, this one. You know what strikes me about this? Reading that the total death toll, of the British military was 454 people.
Yeah.
In comparison to the number of civilians killed, in comparison to the number of American soldiers killed in that conflict, it is a smaller number.
Yeah.
And it is still a mind-boggling amount of death.
Yeah.
You can say, oh, it was this many people, but that doesn't really speak to the reality of it, which is that many lives ending affects how many thousands of people, how many millions of people, if you go back to the metaphor of a pebble thrown, the ripples radiating outward from that one death. That's stuck in the national psyche forever.
Yeah. It's a generation where their parents survived the war.
Mm-hmm.
They had the boomers. The boomers had us, and they watched us go off to war and not come back.
Mm-hmm. Or,
or come back.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, that number, 454, that speaks nothing to the number of lives that were permanently impacted and scarred, Hearing soldiers talk about trying to reintegrate into society, there are people who say, yeah, the guys who died were the lucky ones, because what I'm living with is hell.
Their support system is a joke.
Especially in the United States.
Yeah.
We'd like to think that maybe in Britain it would be a little bit better, but I suspect anything you could do would be insufficient.
Yeah, right. Not war, I think is...
Yeah. As rain comes down on Wootton Bassett Town, black hearses crawl and church bells sound. Bikers, burgers, they line the curbs.
As rain comes down on Wootton Bassett Town, black hearses crawl and church bells sound. Bikers, burgers, they line the curbs.
What's a burger?
A burger? I'm glad you ask. Before we get into that, curb is spelled K-E-R-B, just the UK spelling for it. I like it.
Because Britain.
Burger is a citizen of a town or city, typically a member of the wealthy bourgeoisie.
Oh, from Middle English burg, reinforced by Dutch burger from burg, castle.
And Burgermeister is basically a mayor, the master of the burger.
The castle guy.
Yeah.
Oh, that's quite nice.
Yeah.
Politician, a highness royal. Oh, God, I love this swap, putting it out of order like that's just glorious.
A politician, a highness royal.
Yeah, so he's saying everybody's there.
Everybody's there.
Everybody is there to experience it. It's, oh, great. It's the great unifier mourning the loss of our soldiers.
Yeah, and shed their tears for the military man.
Yeah.
For the military man.
Chance shoppers, tradesmen, stiffly stand and shed their tears for the military man.
Bum, 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 bum.
So, there we have Gerald, the soldier.
There it is.
Not clear if he died in the conflict or if he died on the inside in the conflict and came back and is witnessing this, but it kind of works either way.
It does, yeah. I think keeping it vague was a good decision. I think it's one of those really nice instances where you can interpret it either way, and there's nothing pointing one way or the other too much, so it's not like I really want him to have survived, but he kind of didn't. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's amorphous enough.
And the moral of the story is he was very excited to go to war, and it turned out it did not live up to his expectations.
It was shitty when he got back. Yeah.
One way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
Another happy ending for Gerald. As we move on to the next week, we enter Gerald the Chorister.
Hooray! Vicar John.
Quite fun bit.
It is, yeah.
Dabbling in religion, and Ian gets to poke fun at the church, which is always always a good time.
Yeah. Very respectfully.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure, maybe.
Yeah. Until next week, Nick.
Oh my gosh. What can we pull out of here that's not horribly disrespectful and depressing?
Until next week, I like my punishment like I like my whiskey. Harsh and sweet. I'm Omen Thomas Sade.
I lie in sweat, other people's tears, and probably some other fluids. I am Nick McGill.
Our curbs are lined with burgers with effectless moans.
Stand stiffly as you listen to Talk Tull to Me.
Let's tell Mom it was Billy's mistake.
You're making the mistake.
Flint!
Anyone can have an accident, but lying makes it worse.
But Mom will be upset.
She'll be even more upset if you lie. And how would you feel if Billy got punished? Face up to what you've done. Don't take the easy way out.
We'll tell her we did it.
Remember, it's better to tell the truth.
And that's no lie. Now we know.
And knowing is half the battle.